The question is, as we try to make MDMA into a medicine, will it require like congressional action to reschedule MDMA, or can it be done just through the FDA? The answer is that it can be done just through the FDA, and that's why it makes sense to try this strategy. The FDA can say, this drug has been proven to be safe and efficacious for this particular indication. So it must go from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2. Schedule 2 is still drugs that have a high potential for abuse. The penalties are still the same for non-medical use. The DEA comes in, and the FDA Office of Controlled Substances, where they try to decide, should it be Schedule 3, should it be Schedule 4, what kind of regulation should control it. We have only one example of where Congress acted, and that's with the drug GHB. Ironically, it's with a psychedelic drug. That GHB has been made into a medicine for narcolepsy, for people who fall asleep during the day, and they don't get good enough sleep at night, so they get prescribed GHB to help them sleep at night. And what the company that did this research is they made this kind of Faustian bargain with the government, and they basically said, if we will help you crack down on the non-medical use of GHB. We'll tell you all the different ways of synthesizing it, we'll tell you where all the precursors are, and if we do that to help you, will you help us by making a special law? And what they passed was GHB is in Schedule 1 if it's used non-medically, but it's in Schedule 3 if it's used for medicine. Schedule 3, you don't have to have triplicate prescriptions, the DEA doesn't keep as close a watch on it, it makes a whole lot of a financial difference to a pharmaceutical company if their drug is Schedule 3. So we don't need DEA to agree. They must make it into a Schedule 2 medicine if the FDA says yes. So that's where our strength is. And right now, it's really important to think about the government as, I mean, if you think about how many fights we have between those of us who are in this community, which is a lot, think about the government as that way too. So there's no the government. The government is all these different groups fighting against each other all the time. And so what we have to do is find what the institutional missions are of the different agencies. So the DEA is just sustain the drug war, promote the drug war, scare people about the drugs. NIDA used to be the National Institute on Drug Abuse, helping people deal with addiction. It was sort of captured by Alan Leshner and others who decided that the best way to build up the budget of NIDA was to put science in the service of the drug war. The Drug Czar's office is obviously sort of focused on it, but the FDA's mission is to develop medicines to help people. And they're used to narcotics for pain, they're used to all sorts of stuff. So the FDA is not on our side, but they are on the side of science over politics. And that's all the opening that we need. Yes?
Salvia divinorum presents us with an unusual situation where we have a major psychedelic that is still remain legal until 2008. What do you think is the best way of assuring that it remains legal?
The question is about Salvia divinorum. It's a major psychedelic. It's still legal right now federally. It's already illegal by a bunch of states. And the question is, what can we do about it? And basically nothing. I mean, I think that this idea of patience being the fastest way is you have to realize when you're outgunned, when you are not very powerful. And so this like prohibition machine has grabbed hold of salvia, and it's just going to roll right over everybody that does it. So the other thing I would say, though, is that it's not that much of a problem from our point of view, because trying to develop psychedelics into medicine, salvia I don't think has much in the way of therapeutic potential, and even if it did, we couldn't afford to develop it into a medicine. What we need is drugs that have been demonized for decades. And governments all over the world have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on what's wrong with these drugs. So that is the situation with marijuana, with LSD, with psilocybin, particularly with MDMA. There's hundreds of millions of dollars on the risks that we can capture. We have spent about $150,000 on having a woman, Ilse Jerome, read every single paper ever published in the scientific literature on MDMA, summarize them, and keep up to date with it. So we have been able to capture several hundred millions of dollars worth of research for $150,000. And so that's why I think it's reasonable to say this $10 million 10-year plan, because pharmaceutical companies will tell you that it takes $1 billion, it can't be done the way we're doing it, but they're starting out with a new drug. We're starting out with a drug that was invented, MDMA, invented in 1912, synthesized 12, patented in 1914. Tens of millions of people have taken it, hundreds of millions have been spent on it, but all on the risks. So now we have a terrific opportunity to just focus on the benefits. So it really is both practical, it's the Aikido strategy, is we take the energy of the demonization and use it to our benefit. Yes, yeah, so I say this, that I took, one of my MDMA trips that I took by myself was, I camped out all night near Big Sur, and I was doing all this projecting on a tree, and I was imagining that the tree was the DEA looking at me. And I was trying to figure out, how do I stay safe from this kind of DEA perspective? And so my training also has been more and more to understand what the DEA's concerns are and what our society's concerns are, and to some extent sympathize with them. So my approach to MDMA is that I think that it should be regulated in a highly controlled manner. I think that the medical use is not the same as the debate over legalization. We're talking about medical use. So that psychedelics, and this is, I guess I'll leave you with this, is that the reason we're going nowhere with marijuana, making it into a medicine, we've been trying since 2001 to get a license to break the federal monopoly on marijuana. We won a DEA lawsuit, we have 45 members of Congress, 2 senators on our favor, but we're still going nowhere. So that marijuana is not happening on a federal level, but psychedelics, we're making a lot of progress. And the reason is that marijuana, from a police point of view, is a total nightmare as a medicine. Because if you use marijuana, chances are you've got some chronic condition. Pain, MS, nausea for chemotherapy, at least while you're undergoing chemotherapy, AIDS, HIV, all sorts of stuff. And so you take the drug at home, and you administer it to yourself multiple times a day, and you get a month's supply or so, and who knows who you give it to, what happens. So controlling diversion from the police perspective on medical marijuana is a total nightmare. And actually, if you go to California, you see it is a nightmare for them from a diversion point of view. Psychedelics offer us this incredible opposite situation, where if we say, you never get psychedelics as a prescription to take home and do on your own. It's psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. So you only get the drug under supervision of therapists. And I do believe that we constantly have to be aware of this backlash potential. And so we have to grow in a slow, careful way. And I think that people will need special training. Actually, we will be the ones to provide it, so that the people that do the studies that are used as evidence to make it into a medicine have developed the method. And then I think we will train, I think the FDA will require us to train psychiatrists and therapists in our method. However, we're not like trying to dictate how everybody should use it. So that once somebody has been through the training in our method and they can use it in therapy, they can use their own method. Physicians can prescribe off-label, so that there are, we think we have a method. This woman, there are other people with different methods who have been able to achieve great success. So I think that we should also limit it to special clinics as a further safety. And I'll say that in 1974 was the first hospice center in the United States. And in 2004, there was over 3,000 hospice centers over a 30-year period. So I think that we'll eventually have psychedelic clinics in every town in America, probably, big enough to have, Starbucks or something. So I think that I am, and the board members of MAPS, one of them is a major libertarian. So there's constant pressure to sort of open it up to everybody, and he's resisting a lot of these ideas. But personally, I feel it should be highly controlled at the beginning.
Thank you.